Welcome to the deep dive. This is the place where, well, all AI meets SEO and frankly, all hell breaks loose. It requires everyone, from the solo creator right up to the enterprise strategist to really rethink their fundamental content choices.
Oh, absolutely. Indeed. The traditional methods we all use for maximizing organic visibility, they're being instantly challenged, really challenged by this rapid shift toward generative results. The content landscape isn't just changing, it's demanding a level of surgical precision we really haven't seen before.
That's exactly why today we are tackling that classic content conundrum. You know the one, it plagues every strategy session. The content refresh versus the new page strategy. You, the listener, you're constantly faced with this really tangible dilemma. Do I spend precious resources updating this aging piece of content that's slipping? Or is it a smarter move to maybe spin off a brand new page? Capture a distinct search opportunity.
And this choice, it's not just about maximizing keyword coverage anymore. Not at all. It's absolutely critical for search visibility, especially now that, generative AI models are actively selecting sources. They're picking the sources to build their overviews and answer queries. We're really moving from ranking to selection. It's a big shift.
Right. So our mission today is to give you a robust, the strategic framework for making this content decision with more confidence. We've pulled expert guidance from across the industry, particularly from strategic content consultancies, really trying to define the strict rules of engagement here.
And here's the big picture right away. Sort of cuts through all the keyword chatter and, the traffic obsession. The decision isn't fundamentally about chasing search volumes. It just isn't. It's about the solution the page provides. As the strategic advice we looked at emphasizes, the goal is always to uncomplicate that solution for the visitor. That's key. If the solution is basically the same, you refresh. If the solution is uniquely different, well, then you create something new. The solution is a variable, you see, not the ranking potential itself.
Okay, let's unpack this strategic framework then. Let's start with the arguments for refreshing. So, you look at your analytics, right? You see a piece of content, maybe it was mighty once, now it's sitting on page 2, page 3, starting to lose keywords. When do you reach for that edit button? When do you trust that the accumulated value of that old URL can still be leveraged?
Well, the general rule for refreshing is actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You refresh when the content starts to underperform. Maybe it fails to recover after a dip. And crucially, it's no longer genuinely helpful to the user. Provided, and this is the really critical distinction, provided you ensure the refresh keeps the content strictly on topic.
Okay.
You're essentially improving the clarity, the accuracy, the absorption of the existing content package. You're not repurposing it for some new topic.
Right, improving the existing product.
Yeah.
That speaks directly to maintaining what we often call, accumulated authority. Can you unpack that for us? Like, technically, what components of authority are we actually preserving when we insist on keeping the same URL? Why is that URL worth fighting for?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's definitely not just like a sentimental attachment to a URL slug. Accumulated authority is a composite score, really. It includes historical performance data, how long the pages existed, how well it performed in the past. That matters. More importantly, though, it preserves the external equity.
The backlinks.
Exactly. All the backlinks pointing to that specific URL over time. If you move the content to a new page, well, you start that link equity clock all over again. And even with redirects, you often lose a portion of that signal. It's just not as strong. And finally, you preserve the historical user signals, things like dwell time, click-through rates, bounce rates, all the stuff that established the page as a trusted entity for its specific query in the first place.
Okay, so if the topic remains fundamentally the same, sticking with that history is usually the better bet. Let's dive into the specific scenarios then. The advice points to 4 clear cases where refreshing is the undisputed champion. The first one deals with product life cycles and variants.
Yeah, this is probably the cleanest case, super clear. Think about manufacturers, right?
Right.
They release yearly models or maybe continuous product updates where only the newest variant is actually sold. Or maybe a software company updates its interface. Or an apparel brand releases its signature t-shirt in 5 new seasonal colors. The solution being offered is still fundamentally the signature t-shirt. The core product hasn't changed.
Right. You definitely don't want a signature t-shirt 2023 page and then a whole separate signature t-shirt 2024 page. That sounds like a nightmare. You just fragment your visibility, don't you? And you force search engines to unnecessarily choose between 2 almost identical solutions.
Exactly right. And what usually happens then, neither of them ranks particularly well.
Yeah.
So Keeping those updates on the same URL preserves that entire history. It tells the search engines and the user too, look, this is the definitive, historically verified page for this product. We just updated the images, the specs, maybe the pricing, but it's the same core thing.
Okay, but let me push back on that a little. What about the user experience argument? If I keep the same URL for my sneaker, right, and I just swap out the image from the 2023 model to the 2024 model, don't I risk confusing users who might be looking at, say, 5-year-old reviews mentioning defects that were actually fixed in the new model? Doesn't that justify a new URL sometimes for a clean slate?
That's a powerful internal consideration, absolutely.
Mm.
And it does require careful site management, no doubt about it. While there's maybe a short-term cleanup benefit, getting fresh reviews, strategically, the immense value of that accumulated link equity, it often outweighs that risk. The solution really lies in how the content is presented and segmented on the page itself. So instead of just updating the page silently, you refresh the copy to explicitly state, hey, this is the all-new 2024 model, and we've addressed feedback from previous generations. Be transparent. Now, if the product were entirely redesigned, like switching from a running shoe to a hiking boot, that's different. That would absolutely demand a new page. But a variant update, that really calls for a refresh.
Okay, that makes sense. Clarify within the existing page. So the second scenario where refreshing wins deals with pure necessity, data accuracy and timeliness. This feels less about product authority and maybe more about trust, wouldn't you say?
Totally. If the helpfulness of your page hinges entirely on its accuracy, well, you just have to refresh it continually. There's no way around it. This is essential for any content based on external facts. Things like statistical reports, annual summaries, industry benchmarks, or even complex shopping lists. I mean, if your analysis relies on a report citing 5-year-old market data, the content is basically useless, right? Even if the writing itself is brilliant, you have to update those data points. That requires a refresh and often, an entirely new publication date to signal that content is current and trustworthy.
And the practical examples here are, very resonant. We see this all the time with shopping guides that become actively detrimental over time. If a list recommending the top 5 brands for X now features 3 companies that have gone out of business or products that are totally obsolete, that list is actually doing a disservice to the user.
Absolutely. The list's utility has just expired. It's dead in the water. And notice, you're not chasing new keywords here. You're simply maintaining the page's core utility for the visitor. You're keeping it useful.
Got it. And the same logic seems to apply to scenario 3. User need evolution. So if the content was a perfect answer a year ago, but maybe the industry has shifted or public consciousness has moved on, you've got to evolve the page to keep it relevant, right?
Yes, exactly. Think about it. If you published a guide on, say, how to choose a laptop 3 years ago, back then the conversation probably revolved around RAM, storage, maybe graphics cards, standard stuff. But today, if you don't address the growing impact of, like, new AI processors on performance or cooling or battery life, well, your guide feels incomplete. It's missing key factors. Users are actively considering these new concepts now, so you have to integrate them, maybe add a new H3 subheader, or even a dedicated section within the existing guide.
So you're meeting the user where they are now, preventing them from needing to do a second related search because your content felt dated.
Precisely. And finally, scenario 4, this one's interesting, the non-content refresh. Sometimes the information itself is perfect, the data is accurate, but the user experience is just terrible.
So this is refreshing purely for formatting reasons, driven entirely by the goal of absorption, making it easier to consume. We're talking about things like turning a dense paragraph into a neat bullet list.
Exactly. Or transforming messy comparative data into a beautifully scannable table. Or maybe embedding a new video or an explanatory graphic to summarize the key points visually.
Okay.
And what's fascinating here is that this kind of refresh, it's actually a direct signal of improved quality to the search engines and critically also to the AI models trying to synthesize information. When you improve scannability, what happens? Time on page and engagement metrics usually spike up.
Right.
And that confirms to the algorithms, hey, this page is more helpful, it's easier to use. And therefore, it becomes a better candidate for selection for things like featured snippets or AI overviews.
Makes sense. But let's transition here with the key risk involved in refreshing, because the strategic guidance we looked at provides a very clear warning. Refreshing is bad, potentially really bad, if the new content takes the page off topic. What are the sort of technical consequences of this content dilution?
Oh, dilution is deadly, especially now in a world that's really prioritizing singular topical authority. If you try to jam a tangentially related topic into an existing page, let's say you have a page about beginner knitting stitches, right? And suddenly you add a huge new header and section on advanced dyeing techniques using synthetic colors.
Yeah, those feel pretty different.
Very different. You fracture the page's unique visibility score. The page ceases to be the definitive resource for basic stitches, and at the same time, it's way too shallow to actually compete for queries about advanced dyeing techniques.
So instead of being the best at one thing, you become kind of mediocre at two things and rank for neither.
Precisely. You hurt your visibility because the page is no longer the definitive solution for its original intent. Search engines get confused about the primary intent, which forces the page to rank lower for both sets of related queries. In that scenario, you absolutely must create a new page, which conveniently brings us to the counter rule,
Perfect segue.
when you should create something new.
Okay, let's get into that.
That brings us perfectly to the core rationale for creating new pages.
Yeah.
We create a new page when the solution needed is, yes, highly relevant to the original topic, but it's unique enough to really justify its own existence. And crucially, it cannot be absorbed into the original page without making that original page irrelevant or just confusingly broad.
Right. This is about creating a new dedicated artifact, something that serves a distinct and specific purpose. And it's not just about finding a new keyword to target. It's about recognizing that a certain segment of your users needs a specialized solution
Exactly.
that the main page just cannot accommodate efficiently.
The first major use case here is defining depth and detail. So imagine you maintain a high-level overview page on, say, global business strategy, pretty broad, and you realize that one subcomponent, maybe the application of blockchain tech to supply chain logistics, now requires a dedicated 5,000-word deep dive article.
Yeah.
You absolutely do not just dump that massive chunk of specialized content into your existing 2,000-word overview page. That would destroy the overview.
You spin it off. You create a new definitive guide that really defines that specific topic or strategy or theory in significantly more detail than the original page allows. This creates topical authority, right? By showing breadth and depth across your site structure, the original page kind of becomes the hub,
That's right.
and the new page becomes the spoke, going deeper.
Exactly. Hub and spoke model. Very effective. Secondly, we see new pages justified very strongly in specialized funnels and subcategories. This is especially prevalent in e-commerce and lead generation, where user intent gets very, very specific.
Yeah, in e-commerce, this feels crucial for serving the highly specific shopper. Like if you sell hiking boots, you might have a broad main category page for just men's hiking boots. Makes sense. But if you notice that a key segment of your audience is consistently searching for or asking about waterproof hiking boots for wide feet, specifically designed for rocky terrain.
That's super specific.
Right. That specialized need is just too unique to be satisfied by scrolling through the broad page.
Absolutely. The user searching for that specific combination, they need a highly relevant funnel immediately. If your main page forces them to wade through, 50 regular fit non-waterproof boots, they're going to bounce. They're gone. So the new sub-collection page serves that specific high-intent need directly. And we see this applied broadly to product alternatives tailored for specific needs, size, fit, make, model, you name it. If the solution requires a narrow, precise filtering experience, it probably needs its own page.
And in the B2B or lead gen space, this applies directly to service options too, doesn't it? Like if you offer 3 tiers of consulting, maybe basic onboarding, advanced implementation, and full service management, trying to sell all 3 effectively with one general landing page seems really inefficient.
It is. You absolutely need separate pages for each service option. You need to direct the person to the most relevant funnel for their specific budget, their specific depth of need. Tailor the message.
Okay, let's use some of those concrete analogies mentioned in the sources. They make the unique solution concept really clear. Think about a cooking or a recipe site example. If the site offers a regular lasagna recipe, a gluten-free version, and maybe a vegetarian option, stuffing all 3 entirely distinct recipe methods onto the main lasagna page sounds like a user experience disaster.
Oh, it's the lasagna recipe nightmare. Absolutely. Total mess. The user who specifically searches for gluten-free lasagna recipe, they do not want to scroll past 2 pages of instructions using regular flour and meat sauce.
No way. They want the answer immediately.
So the strategic advice we review strongly suggests create a main hub page, the classic lasagna maybe, and then use clear internal links, probably right near the top, to spin off the specific variations. The new gluten-free lasagna page is justified because the ingredients are different, the method is fundamentally different. It provides a truly unique solution.
And this is actually strategic genius from an SEO perspective too, isn't it? It respects user intent, helps the user find their specific solution right away. That's good UX. But crucially, by separating them and internally linking them properly, it informs the search engines that you have definitive, separate solutions for all three unique intents, while still maintaining the integrity and focus of the original classic page.
Exactly. And we see this with the clothing brand analogy, too. Let's say customers frequently complain about the tighter fit of a specific dress shirt you sell. Creating a dedicated guide that addresses sizing specifically, maybe comparing tighter versus looser fits, offering detailed measurement advice, or even recommending a complementary brand known for a different cut that might suit specific body types better.
Ah, interesting.
That content is incredibly valuable. That specialized solution, addressing a common pain point not really covered on the main product page, that justifies its existence as a new piece of content.
Okay, so once we've established that the new page is strategically sound, right? Because it offers a truly unique solution. The crucial next step, and the sources say this is non-negotiable, is internal linking. This isn't optional.
Not at all. It's a structural requirement. Detail, detail, detail here. You absolutely must internal link from the original, authoritative related page to the new content. And this isn't just, a best practice. It serves two vital functions. First, it helps visitors learn more or find their specific alternative right at that moment of highest intent. That improves overall user experience, site stickiness, all that good stuff.
And second,
and arguably more important for SEO, it is absolutely vital for search engine crawlers. That internal link acts like a roadmap. It signals to crawlers, hey, this new highly relevant content exists over here. And it's structurally supported by this existing authoritative content. And it should be considered part of the overall topic cluster. Without that link, that new page is basically an island, just floating out there in the vast ocean of your site. It makes discovery and, importantly, authority transfer much, much harder for the search engines.
got it. Link internally. Crucial step. Okay, so we've defined when to refresh, basically, maintain relevance, and when to create new content, define unique solutions. But often, this whole strategic conversation is only happening because the existing content has kind of failed, right? It's fallen into the trap of becoming what the sources call a complicated page. Let's spend a bit of time outlining the symptoms of this content sickness. What does it look like?
Yeah, a complicated page is basically content that systematically fails both the user and the search engine. It's just not working. It's usually a page that has, accumulated cruft over time. Or maybe it's been haphazardly refreshed without a clear strategy. Or maybe it was just poorly structured from the very start. And spotting this often dictates the need for either a major structural refresh or sometimes immediate segmentation into new, focused pages.
One of the biggest offenders I see, and the sources mention it too, is technical jargon overload. We've all landed on those guides, right? Pages just stuffed with technical terms, industry-specific acronyms, stuff that the average, maybe mid-funnel consumer simply won't understand without needing to perform another search just to define the terms on the first page.
Oh yeah. If your content requires the user to open a new browser tab just to define the words on your current tab, you have fundamentally failed the strategic mission. What was the mission? To uncomplicate the solution. You've done the opposite. This dramatically increases cognitive load for the user. And from an SEO perspective, what does that lead to? Lower dwell time, higher bounce rates. Both are negative quality signals, regardless of how technically accurate the details might be. Search engines prioritize the accessibility of the solution. Can people actually understand and use it?
Makes sense. Then there are the major structural failures. We're talking about content that's just visually difficult to scan through. Maybe it has multiple poorly defined sections all crammed together, or the actual solutions are buried deep within these vast monolithic blocks of text.
Yeah, the wall of text problem.
Exactly. The user has to hunt for the answer, and let's be honest, they'll usually fail the hunt and just leave.
And search engines, and especially now the generative AI models selecting sources, they heavily prioritize clear content absorption. They need to parse it easily. If a user arrives, scrolls rapidly down the page, clearly fails to find the solution, and clicks back. That's a strong negative signal. It indicates low helpfulness. Structure a good formatting, clear headings. That's really our only tool to guide the user's eye and ensure the solution is easy to find. And good structure often dictates whether you're even eligible for rich results like featured snippets.
And we absolutely have to talk about the paragraph issues. The sources point out two extremes here, and apparently both are equally bad for absorption. First, you've got the massive, bulky paragraphs, just dense blocks of text with no visual breaks. It looks like a solid wall, instantly overwhelming the reader.
Yeah, this is often a direct consequence of writing for that old search mentality, right? Just trying to hit a specific word count rather than focusing on actual comprehension. The machine learning systems, which are increasingly mimicking human reading patterns, they flag this instantly as poor formatting. It's a negative signal.
And then there's the opposite problem. These short, choppy paragraphs that only offer really general, high-level statements. They don't actually provide detailed solutions. This is the content we often call fluffy, right? It uses a lot of words but contains basically zero substance, zero value. The strategic guidance we looked at specifically names fluff as a key trigger for a mandatory content refresh.
Absolutely. If the content is just fluffy, padded out with introductory sentences that don't actually add value, it needs a serious overhaul. It's just diluting the signal-to-noise ratio on the page. Makes it harder for both users and machines to find the actual point.
Okay, so this brings us back nicely to the formatting remedies. These often form the basis of the most successful content refreshes, don't they? If you identify one of these complicated pages, you need to perform a kind of structural audit. Look for specific places where sentences or big blocks of content should actually be formatted differently.
Absolutely. Audit time. Ask yourself, are there 3 or more related ideas presented in like a long run-on sentence separated by semicolons?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
That should almost certainly be an explicit bullet list. Make it scannable. Is a dense block of text trying to explain a chronological sequence of steps, like a how-to, that needs to be a numbered list, or maybe a series of clear, distinct H3 headers for each step? Break it down. Is the content comparing things, features, pricing, technical data points?
Needs a table.
Immediately.
Yeah.
That needs to be presented as a scannable table. Don't make people work to compare.
And proper header hierarchy, too. Seems basic, but it's vital here and often overlooked. You know, H1 for the main topic, H2s for the main sectional shifts, H3s for supporting points or substeps within those sections. This provides that clear, scannable outline that both human users rely on and, increasingly, the AI systems rely on for synthesis.
And here is the really important strategic tie-in. Addressing these formatting issues. It's often the quickest path to turning a complicated, underperforming page into a high-quality selection candidate for things like AI overviews. When you format information clearly in lists, in tables, you're making it structurally simpler for algorithms to extract those rich results, like PAA boxes or featured snippets. You're not just making it look nicer for humans, you are structurally optimizing for machine selection. This directly boosts absorption and perceived helpfulness, often without needing to change a single factual detail in the content itself. Just reformatting can have a huge impact.
Fascinating. Structure is strategy.
Okay, so we can talk about strategic decisions all day long, right? Refresh this, create new that. But as the guidance strongly stresses, the decision itself, refresh versus new page, is pretty much meaningless unless you measure the results with rigor. You have to track it. Measurement is the imperative here. So we're going to walk through 2 essential testing methodologies that the experts use. These help validate whether your strategic choice was actually correct and ensure your effort led to a tangible return.
Okay, test 1 is the control group strategy. Sounds scientific. This provides the necessary competitive analysis, helps isolate the variable, which is the work you did. So you select a control group of pages or topics and you just leave them entirely alone.
Exactly. They are your statistical baseline, your comparison point. But you have to be incredibly thoughtful about the selection process here. It's often harder than it sounds. The control group needs to be, roughly speaking, about as competitive to rank as the test group you're working on.
Ah, okay. Apples to apples.
Right. You cannot compare a highly competitive core moneymaker article in your test group against some forgotten, low-value corporate boilerplate page in your control group. That tells you nothing. They have to achieve some level of competitive parity in terms of topic difficulty and their initial ranking potential.
Got it. So once that baseline is established, in the test group, you either expand with an equal amount of new content or you refresh the same amount of content as you planned. The key is balance, right?
Yeah.
Parity of effort. You're measuring the strategy refresh versus new, not just how hard the topic is.
That's exactly right. And the observation phase. It requires patience. This isn't instant gratification. You need to monitor this over several months, definitely not just days or weeks. SEO takes time. You are looking for movement. Specifically, you're observing if the test group starts to gain traffic, maybe ranks for new keyword clusters, steadily climbs the rankings, while the control group, ideally, remains stagnant, or maybe even continues to slip. If the test group succeeds and you see that separation, you know your choice refresh or new page was likely correct for that specific content cluster and that competitive landscape.
Okay, so we're looking for that clear separation in performance over time, proof that the action you took was the variable that actually made the difference.
Precisely. Validation. Now, Test 2 relies heavily on reliable rank tracking and keyword monitoring. This assumes you have access to a sophisticated tool, something capable of tracking your positions reliably across a large set of relevant keywords. Here, you need to monitor precisely how many new keywords that specific content group, the one you worked on, is ranking for. And you look at various crucial buckets or tiers.
Right. The strategic buckets mentioned in the analysis seem crucial for validating real growth, not just noise. We monitor the top 100 positions that shows velocity, potential reach. Then we monitor the top 20 positions that shows proximity to real success, getting closer to page 1. And most importantly, we track those coveted top 10 positions, page 1 rankings.
Exactly. If, after maybe 2 or 3 months, you see significant sustained increases across these metrics in your test content, that's a strong positive validation. Your strategy is likely working. But the analysis can't just stop there, because volume, raw keyword count isn't everything.
Ah, okay. What else? You have to validate the user intent of those new keywords and phrases.
Yeah.
Make sure they actually match the page's purpose. Like if you refreshed an informational guide on, say, how to repair a leaky faucet, and the new keywords you start ranking for are purely commercial, like cheap plumber near me. Well, you might have accidentally taken the page off topic, even if rankings went up.
That's dilution by misdirected intent. Exactly. The keywords must align with the core purpose of the page. Is it shopping intent? How-to intent? Purely informational? If the new keyword gains signal that the user clearly wants to buy a service, when the page provides a guide on how to do the service yourself, then the strategic decision might actually be flawed, even if you see higher ranking positions for those mismatched terms. It's not serving the right need.
That makes sense. Intent alignment is key. And this brings us to what feel like the most modern, maybe the highest value metrics of success today, the ones tied directly to the current AI landscape. As we look at results, we need to look beyond just those traditional rankings and explicitly focus on eligibility for rich results.
Yes. This is where the true strategic success signal increasingly lies, especially going forward. You need to look for increases in rich results, like people also ask those PAA boxes. And critically, appearances in AI overviews. If your content, particularly after a refresh or being newly created, suddenly starts featuring prominently in these enhanced features, especially if the refreshed content is selected as the answer in an AI overview, that is a direct, powerful sign. It means your new or refreshed strategy is being deemed high quality, perfectly structured, and strategically correct by the machine itself.
Wow. So an AI overview appearance in particular means your content was literally selected as the authoritative source for the solution being presented. It's not just ranking number 1 anymore in the traditional sense. It's being selected as the singular truth, effectively, which is like the ultimate validation that you have successfully uncomplicated the solution for the visitor and structured it perfectly for machine synthesis.
Couldn't have said it better. And the ability to earn these results, it demonstrates that those formatting fixes we talked about back in section 3, using tables, bullet points, clear header structure, they weren't just aesthetic improvements. They were fundamental structural improvements. They unlocked machine readability and trust. That's why measurement has to include tracking these rich result features now. Hashtag outro.
Okay. This has been a really critical deep dive into a decision that, let's face it, drives massive resource allocation in content strategy rooms everywhere. Let's finish up with just a quick summary of the core rules we extracted from that strategic framework we've been discussing.
Sounds good. The core conclusion really boils down to this. Refresh your content when the core topic remains relevant, but the content itself has become outdated, maybe it's poorly formatted, or it's just overly fluffy, lacks sufficient absorption or real value. In that case, you are maintaining and improving existing hard-earned authority.
Right. And create a new page when the solution you need to provide is genuinely unique enough from an existing page to fundamentally justify its own existence. The driving force here is providing a clear, non-diluted answer to a specific, unique problem or user need. And remember, keywords and search volumes alone do not justify creating a new page. Only the need for a truly unique solution does.
Well put. Now, for that final provocative thought, tying back to this whole AI environment we're in, we noted that the ultimate success signal is increasingly tied to appearance in AI overviews and other generative results. This really implies that the true measure of a successful content strategy isn't just traffic or rank anymore, maybe not primarily. It's whether the content is now structured and relevant enough to become the authoritative source selected by these generative AI models.
That fundamentally moves SEO beyond just ranking within those traditional 10 blue links, doesn't it? It focuses instead on machine source selection. So the question then becomes, if we are writing content primarily aimed at being perfectly synthesized and summarized by an AI, what does that prioritization do to the human reading experience? Are we optimizing content into such structural perfection for the machine that it potentially becomes less personal, maybe less narrative-driven for the actual human reader? This could really change how we define topic relevance and even good writing moving forward. It's a tension there.
It is a fascinating potential conflict between optimization for the machine and engagement for the readership. Something definitely to mull over as you audit your own content clusters this week.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Go apply this framework, make those tough content choices with a bit more confidence, and definitely start measuring the strategic payoff. We'll catch you next time.